Okay, Mrs. Boone here. This is going to be a lesson all about text. So this is the first time we're really talking in depth about how to use text properly in Illustrator. So here I am, I've got a brand new file, just blank, and we're going to talk about some of the different types of text. So the most basic thing you need to know is where to find your type tool. So over here on the left-hand side, we've got our tool panel. The T right here that you see is your basic type tool. Now I've got my screen set up to the Essentials format. Some of you may be used to seeing it in this Essentials Classic format, but I'm going to go ahead and work from here. So if you want to join me on the Essentials format, you can. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on this type tool over here. Notice there's a shortcut that says T. You can also push the letter T on your keyboard to get directly to your type tool. Now there's two different types of text in Illustrator. We have text boxes and text objects. A text box is created when you take your basic type tool and you just single click on the workspace. Now I'm going to go ahead and type text object so that we can remember that this is a text object. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and grab that same type tool, and instead of just clicking, I'm going to click and drag. Notice a box forms. Right? You may see some filler text like this. This actually is just a filler, right? It's actually Latin, I believe, but it's just a filler in case you don't know what you're going to type there yet. Sometimes designers will put this filler text in to know that this is where a paragraph of text will be later. I'm going to go ahead and backspace that, and I'm going to type, this is a text box. Okay? And then I'm also going to type a bunch of other random words just to illustrate the point of the difference between a text box and a text object. Okay, now that I've got all this text within my text box, I'm going to go and grab my selection tool, which is the black arrow. Right? Now I can come over here and see that this has got some extra text. Notice when I was typing, it kind of stopped and then didn't show anything else. And I've got this little red square with a plus sign in it in the bottom right. That means there's text here that I can't see. Okay? I'll show you how to fix that in just a minute. But let's take a look at what the main difference between a text object and a text box is. So a text object is resizable. All right? Now I'm going to do this the wrong way first because many of you will have a tendency to do this. Okay? Resizable meaning I can take this corner and click and drag it and resize my text. Now what I just did stretched the heck out of those words. I do not ever want to do that. Okay? If you do that on accident, just push Control Z on your keyboard to undo. All right? What I really wanted to do was hold the Shift key on my keyboard and click and drag so that my text is resized. Okay? Notice the proportions stayed the same. I don't have any of this stretching. If I do this and then I hold the Shift key, notice it's going to snap back to what it should be. Okay? So that is one thing. Now, if I try to resize this text box, watch what happens. Okay? Those letters do not change size. The size of this word was exactly the same as the size of these, but the only thing that you're changing when you do this for a text box is the size of the text box. Now, that little red square that I was talking about, if I make my box bigger, it'll go away because the words are now visible. Okay? The second main difference between a text object and a text box is that a text object you can rotate. Okay? So let's go to the corner until we see our little rotate arrows. Right? I don't have to hold Shift, but I'm going to. So if you hold Shift, you'll rotate on 45 degrees and 90 degrees. Okay? So look, I can rotate my text. Right? Now let's see what happens if I do this to a text box. Get that little rotate symbol. All right. So I've rotated it, and my text is still reading horizontally. I've not rotated the text. I've only rotated the text box itself. So, and notice I got this little red square again, so I have to resize this to get all my words back in there. Okay? So that's the difference between a text box and a text object. Okay? Text boxes, you can resize, you can rotate. Text boxes, when you rotate, you actually rotate the box. If you want to resize it, you need to come over to the right-hand side properties panel in the character window and adjust your points of your text. Okay, so you can do that here. Now, how do we get from one to the other? What happens if I drew a text box like this, but I wanted to rotate this box so that my words go vertically like this? So to do that, you can actually pretty easily go in between a text box and a text object. So there should be a little dot here. Now it's going to be blue if this is a text box, and white if this is a text object. And to go between the two, if I double click on this dot, notice how it changed to white. Okay, this is now a text object. I can tell because when I go to rotate it, check it out, my words rotate. Okay, it's not like before where it was just the box that rotated, my actual words and lines of text rotated as well. Right, so that's the main differences between a text object and a text box. Okay, so now that we've talked about the difference between a text object and a text box, let's change that back into a text box. Now we can talk about some different ways to edit, okay, which I'm going to cover in the next video.